For 50 years, she was a ghost, a woman found in a remote Norwegian valley, with every single trace of her identity completely and deliberately erased. It was the perfect mystery, a case that went ice cold almost the moment it started. But today, we're going to see how modern science reached back across 5 decades to finally start telling her story.
This is the question, the one that haunted investigators for decades. A woman with no name, no past, no identity at all. So to understand how science finally gave her one, we have to go right back to the very beginning.
So picture this. The year is 1970. We're in the Isdal Valley near Bergen, Norway, a place the locals sometimes called Death Valley. And it's right here that a hiker stumbles onto a truly chilling scene, kicking off one of Scandinavia's most profound and lasting mysteries.
You know, for the investigators back then, this case was just incredibly frustrating. It was almost like it was designed on purpose to be completely unsolvable.
The facts of the case were just baffling. She was found in this super isolated spot, and get this, all the labels on her clothes had been cut off. The identifying marks on her luggage scraped away. So even after a massive international police investigation, she was still just a total unknown for 50 years. She was simply the Isdal Woman.
And so, the case went cold. For decades, nothing. And then, a breakthrough. And it came from the one place that no one could ever alter, the secrets that were locked deep inside her teeth. Just think about that for a second. While every single external clue about who she was had been destroyed, her own body had kept a perfect record. Her teeth were like a tiny, perfect time capsule, preserving all these chemical fingerprints of where, and maybe even more importantly, when she grew up.
Okay, so this brings us to the first really cool scientific tool they used. To figure out when she was born, scientists used this amazing method that acts like a hidden atomic clock, literally embedded in the enamel of her teeth. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's called bomb pulse radiocarbon dating. Here's the deal. During the Cold War, all those above-ground atomic bomb tests released this huge spike of a special isotope, carbon-14, into the air. And that created a totally unique signature for every single year.
So here's how it works. That carbon-14 in the atmosphere gets into the food chain, right? So when you're a kid and your adult teeth are forming, they absorb that year's specific level of carbon-14 from the food you eat. And then they lock it in for life. It basically creates a permanent birth year timestamp hidden right there in your teeth.
Now, the police had always guessed her age was somewhere between 30 and 40. That means she could have been born anytime between, say, 1930 and 1940. So what did this atomic clock actually find?
Well, when the scientists tested multiple teeth, the results were just unbelievably consistent. Take a look at that calibrated year column. Every single test points to the exact same, very narrow window of time. By taking a weighted average of all the tests, they got an answer with just stunning precision.
Boom! With an extremely high degree of certainty, science gave investigators the first solid fact they'd had in 50 years. The Isdal Woman was born in 1947, give or take a year. This was a huge step forward.
Okay, so knowing when she was born was massive. But could science also tell us where? Well, the answer was in a totally different chemical signature in her teeth, one that acts kind of like a chemical compass.
This second method is called stable isotope analysis. And to put it simply, the kinds of food you eat as a kid, whether it's based on crops like wheat and potatoes that are common in Scandinavia or corn that's more common somewhere else, it leaves a very distinct chemical ratio in your teeth. And those diets are linked to geography.
And the results were just striking. On this chart, a lower bar means it's a closer match. Her diet was a near-perfect statistical match for someone who grew up in Scandinavia. And it was a really poor match for other places, like Poland. The chemical compass was pointing straight north.
And this is where it all comes together. We've got 2 completely separate scientific tests. One looking at atomic radiation, the other at her diet. So what happens when you put their findings right next to each other?
This is the real power of converging evidence. The atomic clock tells us she was born around 1947. The chemical compass tells us she grew up somewhere in Scandinavia.
two totally different scientific paths led investigators to one single, really solid conclusion.
This quote from the forensic report really says it all. This isn't just a guess. It's robust, it's independent, and it's statistically validated evidence. For the first time ever, we have a scientifically proven origin story for the Isdal Woman. She was a Scandinavian born right after World War II.
Forensic science managed to pierce through 50 years of total silence to give us her origin story. And yet, this brings us to one final, much more personal question. We now know where she came from and when she was born, but we still don't know who she was. Her name, her life, her final secrets, those, for now, remain a mystery.